You've worked now for Disney for such a long time, and also the animation changed a lot, and also the stories changed really. How much, as a storyteller, how much do you have to adapt to, to changes also in society and new generations and things like that?
Well, I was there. I was around. I was at Disney at the time when it switched sort of from 2D animation to 3D animation. And it really changed. It didn't change my job or the story people's job. It mainly changed the animators' job. And stories, if you make a good story, it should be timeless, and it should strike a chord with people and resonate with people when they watch it. And they're not thinking about its placement in time. It should be, you should be able to watch these films over and over, and people do. And hopefully, they're strong enough. The storytelling is strong enough to withstand time. And then I know some stories, if you make references to things that are current, it's not timeless. It's sort of stuck in that period. So yeah, I don't know, and then when I saw it switch over, it didn't really change what I did. Because storyboarding is the same job. Sorry, there's a truck driving by.
No, that's fine.
It's the street sweeper. Can you hear it?
I can't hear it.
No, you can't hear it?
No.
Okay, sorry. So, yeah, it really didn't change my job as a story person, because that's always been the same. Storyboarding, storytelling. I think they say Walt Disney created this sort of term, story person, where you come in and you storyboard the whole movie before it's actually animated. So, yeah, that's sort of the job as a story person.
It's also interesting that I think how we watch animated movies, and like you say, the storylines and the humor and the characters as well, that you almost forget it's animation.
Yeah, I agree. Like, once storytelling is storytelling, and if you're drawn into the story and you just care about the characters, I don't think it should matter if it's animated or if it's live action. If it really connects with you, then, I think that, that's one of the earliest forms of entertainment is storytelling, sitting around a fire and telling stories about, gods and, animals and things that happen to you. And it just happened, and we're just doing the same thing over and over, but just in different ways. So.
But now, Jeff, you must have an amazing imagination to be able to come up with all these stories. How did you, as a child, did you realize that you can do this, that you have this ability?
I always felt like it was something I had to do, that I didn't have any other interest, like, playing baseball or football or anything outside of being creative. It must be a gene or something that I have, where you like. I just love children's books, comic books. Growing up, I could track the things that I liked. It started with children's books. Like, I remember in school, the teacher reading a children's book. And just, one of the first ones was Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. And just being caught up in the drawings and the characters, and this little boy who gets sent to bed, and his mom tells him, go where the wild things are. That's where you belong, because you're a little monster. So he goes and he takes this trip and he meets all these monsters. And he's the king of the monsters, but he doesn't feel right. And then he decides he's having so much fun, but then he decides to go home, and he goes back to, his reality. And so just the idea that you could create these things and create these creatures and characters, just really caught my attention. And as I grew up, it went from children's books to animated or comic strips and animated TV shows. Like, in America, they always have these shows during holiday season, like Christmas time, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman, and these stop motion shows. And then I fell in love with comic books and illustration. And so it just sort of led from one thing to another. I always like building things, like making models, sculpting.
Really?
Yeah. So as a kid, that's where my compass was always pointing, was to make things, create things. I loved, like, in school, we always had art class on Fridays, and I just couldn't wait for those days and just sit down and just start making things and drawing things. So yeah, and I never thought as a kid that I could do it as a job. That was something that wasn't open to me. Like, I thought, oh, I like doing it, but it wasn't. I grew up in San Diego, which is south of Los Angeles, and it's not that far away, but I didn't know as a kid Los Angeles was just over there. It felt a million miles away. And I never imagined, like, I could work in Hollywood or have a job being an artist. So I just kind of decided, when I graduated from high school, I didn't have a plan of that I was going to go be an artist. Because my parents were immigrants from the Philippines, and they just believed in, like, get a job to survive. And, my dad was in the Navy. My mom did housekeeping. So it was something that wasn't even a consideration, like, just get a job doing something.
Yeah.
But being a creative person and being an artist was way too high, as an immigrant, to even imagine that you could do it. So they didn't think that was a possibility. And I didn't think so either. And it wasn't something that they told me I couldn't do, like, no, you can't be an artist. It was just like, oh, that's nice, you're doing that art as a hobby, but maybe you should get a job being a computer programmer, or, doing something else where you'll actually make money. Because, that old saying that, there's starving artists. That was the term that everybody throws around. You probably ran into that too. Oh, you'll be a starving artist. You'll be a starving artist.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of it's true, but if you can stick with it and persevere and have that, ability to push through and see your goals and do it, then I think you won't be a starving artist.